The evening sky was slowly losing its light, stretching from a soft orange near the horizon to a deep, sleepy blue above. It felt like the world was taking a long, quiet breath. Even from where you stood, on the outskirts of the town, you could feel it, like the whole coastal village was settling down for the night, and somehow you had just arrived in time to watch it all happen. A faint smell of salt floated through the air, carried in on a gentle breeze from the sea. You could hear the waves far off, lazily crashing against the shore, but they weren't loud, not enough to pull you out of your calm. The seagulls, who had been squawking and flapping all day, were quiet now, their wings folded as if they, too, were ready for a nap. A little chuckle escaped your lips. Even the birds here seemed to know it was time to slow down. Then, very softly, the first drops of rain began to fall. Not the kind that makes you dash for cover. No, just gentle, pattering drops that made the world feel fresh and alive at the same time. You could hear them landing on the cobblestones, creating tiny splashes that sparkled in the last light of day. It was the kind of rain that didn't bother you. In fact, it almost seemed like it was welcoming you, saying, "Hey, slow down, take it easy. You're home now." You started walking, though you didn't have anywhere to go. The cobblestones under your feet were slick from the rain, shiny and uneven, each step making a small tap-tap sound. It reminded you of the sound your old shoes used to make in puddles back when you were a kid. You smiled, shaking your head a little. Funny how something as simple as rain could bring back old memories, even on a night you'd never been here before. Ahead of you, the town started to appear, like it was unfolding itself slowly, one building at a time. The first thing you noticed was the warm glow of the street lamps. They flickered softly, almost as if they were blinking at you in greeting. The houses were small and welcoming, with smoke curling lazily from chimneys and curtains that moved slightly in the breeze. It wasn't a big town, just a sleepy little village that felt like it existed outside of time. You walked a little further, and the sound of the rain mingled with other gentle noises, the occasional creak of a roof, the faint chatter of someone returning home, the soft splash of a puddle that had formed near the edge of a building. You realized how quiet everything was compared to the day, how even the wind seemed to tiptoe instead of rushing through the trees. And there was something magical in that quiet, almost like the town itself was whispering, "Welcome. You can leave the rest of the world behind for a while." As you walked, your eyes were drawn to the little details. A pair of boots left outside a door wet from the rain. A bicycle leaning lazily against a fence, its basket still holding yesterday's mail. A cat stretched on a windowsill, blinking at you slowly, clearly unimpressed by your presence. You almost laughed at the cat's attitude. Classic cat, you thought. Always judging, even in the rain. The smell of the town hit you next, a mix of salt from the sea, wet earth, and the faint, comforting scent of wood and smoke. You could tell that some kitchens were already lighting fires, preparing for the evening meal. Maybe someone was baking bread or simmering soup. The thought made your stomach rumble lightly, though you weren't really hungry. It was just that cozy, homey kind of hunger the one that makes you want to curl up somewhere warm and watch the rain fall outside. You noticed that some windows were open just a crack, letting in the sounds of the outside world, and the soft golden light spilling from them seemed to promise warmth and comfort inside. You imagined sitting by one of those windows, a cup of tea in your hands, watching the rain dance on the cobblestones below. You could almost hear the tea kettle whistling, or maybe that was just your imagination joining the calm. Either way, it felt like the right thing to do. Slow down, take it all in. The streets weren't completely empty, but they were sparsely populated. A lone figure carrying an umbrella hurried past, splashing gently through puddles, while a couple of neighbors waved quietly to each other from their doorways. You noticed how polite and unhurried everyone seemed. No one was rushing, no one was shouting, and even the distant hum of cars from the main road had disappeared. This place was truly a little bubble of calm, and you were stepping right into its heart. As you wandered further into the town, the rain began to pick up just a little. Nothing harsh, just enough to make the world shimmer and glisten. Every leaf, every rooftop, every puddle seemed alive in this soft light. You took a deep breath, letting the damp, salty air fill your lungs, and felt a tiny thrill. It was peaceful, yes, but also alive in a quiet, subtle way. You smiled again, realizing that this town wasn't just sleepy, it was awake in its own gentle rhythm, moving slowly, thoughtfully, like a song in the background that you hadn't noticed until now. A soft chuckle escaped your lips as you imagined explaining to someone back home that you had taken a walk in a sleepy coastal town and had gotten completely lost in its calm. They probably wouldn't understand. How do you explain a feeling, anyway? The warm glow of street lamps reflecting in puddles, the gentle patter of rain, the smell of wet earth, and smoke mixing together in perfect harmony. It was something that had to be experienced, not explained. You came to a small bridge crossing a tiny stream that ran through the village. The water gurgled softly, little droplets making tiny splashes as they hit rocks along the way. The bridge creaked under your feet, but in a friendly, welcoming way. You paused for a moment, leaning against the railing, watching the water flow. The rain was steady now, tapping against your umbrella and dripping from the edges in a quiet rhythm. For the first time in a while, it felt like the world outside didn't exist. Here, there was only the town, the rain, the sea, and you. As the evening deepened, the sky turned a shade of deep navy, dotted with stars that peeked through thin clouds. The lighthouse in the distance sent a slow, sweeping beam across the water, a gentle guardian keeping watch over the sleepy village. You watched it for a moment, letting the light wash over the streets you had walked. It made the town feel safe, like no matter what, you could wander these streets, get lost in the rain, and still feel completely at home. Finally, you let yourself take a deep, slow breath, feeling the rain on your face, the cool air in your lungs, and the soft glow of the town surrounding you. You knew you'd only just begun exploring, but already something had changed. The hustle and bustle of the day felt distant. The quiet rhythm of the village, the patter of rain, the glow of lights, and the sound of the sea all combined into a gentle lullaby. A tiny smile formed on your lips as you whispered to yourself, maybe getting lost isn't so bad after all. And with that thought, you continued walking, each step slower than the last, each breath deeper, as if the town itself was inviting you to relax, to let go, and to slowly, gently sink into the calm of a sleepy coastal evening. The rain had settled into a steady rhythm now, pattering gently on rooftops, bouncing off the cobblestones, and dripping lazily from window ledges. You continued walking, feeling the cool dampness of the evening air on your cheeks. The town was fully revealed now, a collection of small, charming buildings huddled together as if for warmth, their facades glistening under the soft glow of street lamps. The street you were on was narrow, a ribbon of wet cobblestones that seemed to twist and turn like it had its own ideas about where it wanted to go. You slowed your pace, letting your feet follow the curves, the little tap of your shoes blending with the sound of rain around you. Each stone had its own personality, worn smooth by countless footsteps over countless years. Some were a bit loose, wobbling slightly beneath your weight, while others shone like tiny mirrors, reflecting the orange and gold of the lamps above. You looked up and noticed the walls of the buildings, some plastered with pale colours, others made of old, dark wood. Little windows peeked out, each one telling a quiet story. In one window, a flickering candle threw shadows of a vase and a small stack of books. In another, a curtain twitched as someone, or perhaps just a breeze, moved behind it. You couldn't help but smile. It felt like the town was alive, watching you as much as you were exploring it. A soft gust of wind blew down the street, carrying the mingled smells of rain, salt from the sea, and something sweet, maybe a hint of baking bread from a nearby bakery. You inhaled deeply, savoring the mixture. It was the kind of scent that made you feel wrapped up in comfort, even if you weren't anywhere near home. And maybe, just maybe, it made your stomach rumble a little, though you weren't really hungry. As you walked, your eyes fell on a tiny alley branching off to the right. It was even narrower than the street you were on, almost like a secret path. A faint glow from a lantern at the end suggested someone lived or worked there. You considered peeking down the alley, but decided to stay on the main street, at least for now. There would be plenty of time for secret alleys later. For tonight, the main street was company enough. The sound of the rain on the cobblestones created a gentle melody. Each drop had its own note, some landing with a soft plip, others splashing more boldly, creating tiny ripples in puddles. You noticed a particularly large puddle near the side of a shop, its surface perfectly still, reflecting the lamplight and the shadows of nearby buildings. You tiptoed across it, careful not to make too much of a splash, but inevitably, your foot landed just slightly off-center, sending a small wave rippling out. You chuckled to yourself. Ah yes, still a professional puddle, splash maker, you thought, shaking your head. The street wasn't completely empty, though. A few people wandered through the rain, each moving slowly as if they, too, were savoring the evening. One man, carrying a large umbrella, passed by with a careful gait, nodding politely. A woman ahead of him adjusted her scarf and smiled at a cat darting across the street. The cat paused for a moment, giving her a look that clearly said, "You do realize it's raining, right?" before trotting away. You laughed softly. Even the animals seemed to have personalities here, as if the town had its own gentle sense of humor. The buildings themselves had stories written into their walls. You noticed an old inn with a faded sign swinging lightly in the breeze, the letters barely legible but still charming. Across the street, a small shop had a display of seashells in the window, each one catching the lamp light in its own way. You imagined the shopkeeper inside, perhaps humming softly while arranging them, unaware that a wandering stranger like you was admiring their little collection. The narrowness of the street made every sound feel intimate. The clink of a bell from a nearby door, the soft creak of a shutter swinging in the wind, even the distant thump of a wave hitting the shore. All of it seemed close enough to touch. You felt as if the street itself had wrapped its arms around you, holding you gently as you wandered. There was no rush, no obligation, only the slow rhythm of your steps and the soothing patter of rain. Halfway down the street, a gentle curve led you past a small square. A single fountain sat in the center, its water droplets merging with the rain falling from the sky. The fountain was modest, a simple stone basin with a tiny sculpture of a fish spouting water. You stopped for a moment, leaning over the edge to watch the ripples mingle, fascinated by how calming the movement was. Each little circle expanded slowly, fading into the next, just like thoughts drifting in a quiet mind. You noticed the texture of the walls along the street, too. Some were rough and old, with moss growing in the cracks. Others were smooth, freshly painted in soft pastel colors that seemed almost to glow in the rainlight. Here and there, a vine climbed lazily along a brick surface, its leaves slick and shiny with raindrops. You reached out, letting a few droplets fall onto your hand, and smiled. Nature had a gentle way of reminding you that even in a sleepy little town, life kept moving, slowly, softly, and without hurry. A few doors along the way had small chalkboards outside with simple messages: fresh bread tomorrow morning, closed for tea break, or welcome, wanderer. The last one made you grin. It felt almost like the town knew exactly who you were. You imagined answering, "Thank you, I think I'll stay a while." And for tonight, you would. The rain was easing just slightly now, a soft drizzle that made the lamps glow even more warmly against the damp streets. Shadows stretched long across the cobblestones, creating a dance of light and dark. You realized you had been walking slowly for quite a while, but you didn't mind. Time seemed to stretch in this town, measured not by minutes or hours, but by the rhythm of footsteps, the cadence of raindrops, and the subtle sigh of the wind through narrow alleys. Finally, you came to the end of the street, where it opened onto a slightly wider square. Here, the lamps shone brighter, and the sound of the sea came closer, mingling with the distant chatter of villagers finishing their evening routines. You took a deep breath, savoring the salty air and the faint scent of baked goods lingering from the street behind you. For a moment, you felt completely present, completely content, as if the narrow cobblestone street had been a gentle guide, leading you deeper into the town's heart. And so, With one last look back at the winding stones glistening in the soft rain, you stepped forward, ready to discover what else this sleepy coastal town had to offer. Your adventure was just beginning, but the calm, cozy rhythm of the cobblestone street would stay with you, echoing softly in your mind like a lullaby. The rain had softened into a gentle drizzle now, tapping a quiet rhythm against the rooftops and cobblestones. As you wandered deeper into the sleepy coastal town, you noticed a small, unassuming shop tucked between two larger buildings. Its wooden sign swung slightly in the breeze, creaking just enough to announce its presence. The old bookshop. The letters were faded, almost illegible, but that only added to its charm. Something about it invited you closer, whispering, "Step inside, slow down, breathe." You pushed open the door, and a small bell chimed softly above your head. The sound was friendly, like a tiny greeting from the shop itself. Immediately, the world outside seemed to pause. The scent hit you first, a warm, comforting mixture of old paper, polished wood, and just the faintest hint of ink. It was the kind of smell that made you want to take a deep breath and sigh all at once. You could almost taste the nostalgia. Inside, the shop was small but cozy, a maze of tall, wooden bookshelves crammed with stories waiting to be discovered. The shelves were arranged haphazardly, some leaning slightly to one side, others stacked so high that you had to crane your neck to see the top. Books of all sizes and colors lined the walls, their spines showing hints of gold, silver, and faded print. It felt like stepping into another world, a quiet world where every story had its own heartbeat. A soft light came from a few hanging lamps, their glow warm and inviting. Shadows danced along the walls as you wandered, moving like lazy companions in the calm of the shop. You noticed a ladder leaning against one of the taller shelves, and for a moment you imagined climbing up to reach a dusty old tome, carefully opening it to discover secrets that had been waiting decades to be read. You shook your head with a smile. Not tonight, you thought. Tonight, you just wanted to explore slowly, letting the atmosphere wrap around you like a soft blanket. Somewhere in the back, you heard a faint shuffle, the soft scuff of slippers on wooden floors. The shopkeeper, you guessed, probably a small, quiet figure, moved about arranging books or perhaps dusting shelves. You imagined them peeking at you from behind a stack of novels, their eyes twinkling in a way that said, "Aye, another wanderer has found us." You chuckled softly. If you weren't careful, you'd start imagining every small sound as a secret story waiting to be discovered. And maybe that wasn't such a bad thing. The first row of books you reached for felt cool under your fingers, the paper slightly textured, worn by years of turning pages. You flipped through a few, letting your fingertips brush against words that had traveled across time and space to rest here. Some titles were whimsical, others mysterious, and a few downright silly. The Cat Who Learned to Sing, one read. You grinned, imagining a feline performing arias in a tiny coastal theatre. The thought made you laugh quietly, not wanting to disturb the serene hush of the shop. In a cozy corner, a small chair beckoned, plush and slightly sunken from frequent use. Next to it, a tiny side table held a cup of tea, probably left by the shopkeeper during a quiet break. You imagine taking a seat, pulling a book close, and letting the soft drizzle outside provide the perfect soundtrack to your reading. The rain had a way of making time slow, each droplet creating a gentle rhythm that seemed to sync with your breathing. You could almost feel yourself melting into the moment, fully present, fully at peace. A window to your left framed the rainy street outside, droplets sliding lazily down the glass. You noticed how the light from the lamps outside reflected in the puddles, creating tiny, shimmering worlds all their own. Occasionally, a passerby outside would glance into the shop, their face pressed lightly to the glass, and for a brief moment, they too seemed caught in the spell of this sleepy town. You wondered what stories they carried with them, and if, like you, they longed for a pause from the world. The floor creaked softly as you moved further into the shop, each step a reminder of the history contained within these walls. It wasn't just books that filled the space, it was the energy of everyone who had ever wandered through, opened a dusty cover, and lost themselves for a little while. You paused near a particularly tall shelf, reaching up to trace your fingers along a row of leather-bound volumes. The smell of the old leather was intoxicating, earthy and rich, and for a moment, you felt like you could hear the whispers of the stories themselves, murmuring softly, inviting you to read. Some books had notes tucked between the pages, tiny scraps of paper with handwritten words in faded ink. You imagined previous readers, long gone, leaving pieces of themselves behind a line of poetry, a doodle, or perhaps a shopping list. The thought made you smile. Everyone who had ever entered this shop had left a little part of themselves, and now you were part of that ongoing, quiet story. The shop was alive, not in a noisy way, but in the slow, deliberate rhythm of curiosity and imagination. You wandered toward the back of the shop, where the shelves became even taller and closer together, forming small alcoves that felt like secret rooms. Each nook seemed designed for hiding, for getting lost, for discovering something unexpected. A small cat appeared from between the shelves, its fur damp from the drizzle outside, looking at you with mild suspicion. You chuckled again. Great, even the cat is judging my choice of books, you thought. It twitched its tail and disappeared into the shadows, leaving only a soft rustle behind. A soft draught hinted at another window at the back, where a single candle flickered on the sill. Its light danced across the walls, creating shapes that shifted as if the shadows themselves had stories to tell. You leaned against a shelf and just listened. The shop had its own music, the gentle tap of rain, the creak of wood, the faint rustle of pages. It was soothing, hypnotic even, a lullaby for anyone who entered. Eventually, you found yourself near the entrance again, but you didn't want to leave. The rain outside had slowed to a mist, and the world beyond the door seemed just as inviting. Ready for the next stage of your walk through the town, you took one last look around, letting your eyes linger on the warm lamps, the towering shelves, the tiny hidden corners where a story could be waiting just for you. Then, with a soft sigh of contentment, you stepped back into the drizzle, feeling the warmth of the bookshop still wrapping around your shoulders like a gentle hug. The narrow cobblestone street waited for you outside, the puddles reflecting the soft glow of lamps and the darkening sky. The town seemed to whisper, "Come on, wanderer. There's more to see, more to feel. Take it slow." And so, with the rain tapping gently on your umbrella and the scent of wet earth and old pages lingering in your mind, you continued on your walk, each step a little slower, a little calmer, a little more in tune with the sleepy rhythm of the coastal town. The drizzle had softened to a gentle mist as you left the bookshop, but the warmth of the wooden shelves and the scent of old paper still clung to your senses. You walked slowly down the narrow cobblestone street, your umbrella dripping softly, the light of the lamps reflecting in small puddles. It felt like the perfect evening for a pause, a moment to rest and savor the calm. And then, almost as if by fate, you noticed a small cafe tucked behind a curve in the street. A soft glow spilled out from its windows, and the faint smell of something sweet, tea, and perhaps a hint of cinnamon, drifted toward you. Pushing the door open, a small bell chimed lightly, and the world outside seemed to hush for a moment. Inside, the cafe was warm and inviting, a sanctuary from the damp evening air. Wooden tables sat scattered across the floor, each one with a tiny candle flickering on it. The walls were lined with shelves of teapots and cups, some delicate china, others rustic clay, each one telling a quiet story of the hands that had held them. You took a slow breath and smiled, feeling immediately at ease. A friendly figure behind the counter waved at you, their smile soft and welcoming. "Evening," they said, voice warm, "care for a cup of tea. We've got something special for a rainy night." You nodded, grateful for the invitation, and chose a small table by the window. From here, you could watch the rain dance on the cobblestones outside, each droplet catching the warm light from the lamps and creating tiny ripples in puddles. The tea arrived in a small ceramic cup, steam curling up into the air like tiny clouds. The aroma was comforting, rich, earthy, with just a hint of honey. You lifted the cup and took a slow sip, feeling the warmth spread through your chest, chasing away the chill from the damp streets. It was the kind of tea that made you want to close your eyes and sink into the moment, letting the world outside fade a little more with each gentle sip. As you watched the rain outside, your eyes wandered to the little details of the cafe. A cat dozed in the corner, curled tightly around itself, purring softly as if reminding everyone present that there was always time for comfort. A small shelf near the counter held stacks of books and journals, the pages worn and inviting. Someone had left a notebook open on a table, and you imagined a wandering writer jotting down thoughts inspired by the rainy evening. You almost leaned over to peek, but you didn't want to disturb the quiet magic of the cafe. The rain picked up slightly outside, creating a gentle rhythm on the window pane. Tap, tap, tap. It was hypnotic, almost like a metronome for the evening, syncing perfectly with the calm beat of your heart. You let your thoughts wander, drifting lazily from one memory to the next. Maybe it was the sound of rain that always made you reflective, or maybe it was just this town with its narrow streets, warm lights, and soft sense of welcome. Either way, you felt a deep sense of peace, the kind that comes when the world slows just enough to notice every small, beautiful detail. A quiet laugh escaped you as you noticed a tiny paper umbrella sticking out of someone else's teacup at a nearby table. It was cheerful and silly, like a little reminder that even in a calm, sleepy town, there was room for small joys and playful moments. You imagined the person who had placed it there smiling to themselves, knowing that it would catch the eye of a wandering visitor like you. The thought made your chest feel light and warm. You sipped your tea again, savoring the flavors, the faint bitterness of the leaves, softened by a drizzle of honey, the smooth warmth spreading through your fingers as you held the cup. Outside, a pair of lanterns swung gently in the wind, casting moving shadows across the cobblestones. You watched them flicker and dance, and for a moment, you felt like you were in a storybook, one of those quiet tales that only reveal their magic when you slow down enough to notice. The cafe itself seemed to hum with life, but not the noisy kind. It was subtle, gentle, a soft shuffle of chairs, the faint clink of a spoon against a cup, the occasional whisper of someone saying, "Good evening." Each sound blended with the rain outside to create a calming symphony, a lullaby for anyone lucky enough to be inside. You closed your eyes for a moment, letting the sounds wash over you, your breathing slowing to match the rhythm of the evening. A small tray of pastries arrived at your table, a kind gesture from the friendly barista. They were modest, just a few slices of cake and some small, sweet biscuits, but the smell alone made you grin. You picked up a biscuit, feeling it crumble softly between your fingers, and took a bite. The sweetness mingled with the warmth of the tea, and for a moment, the world outside seemed even further away. It was perfect, simple, comforting, and entirely satisfying. You glanced around the cafe once more, noticing the tiny imperfections that made it feel alive. A chipped teapot on the shelf, a slightly crooked lamp, the uneven spacing of the tables, all of it added character. Nothing here was rushed or polished to perfection. Everything was slow, deliberate, and cozy. And in that slowness, there was magic, a sense that every small detail had been carefully arranged to create comfort and calm. The rain softened even further, now more of a gentle mist than a downpour. You watched as droplets slid lazily down the window pane, leaving tiny trails behind them. Outside, the cobblestone street glimmered in the lantern light, and the occasional passerby hurried by, their umbrellas bobbing gently with each step. But inside, you were safe and warm, wrapped in the soft glow of the cafe, a cup of tea cradled in your hands. You took one last slow sip, savoring the final warmth and flavor. The world outside beckoned again, the cobblestone street waiting for your next steps. But for now, you lingered a moment longer, enjoying the comfort, the quiet, and the gentle sense that time had slowed just for you. The rain, the lamps, the warmth of the tea, and the subtle hum of the cafe had created a perfect pause, a moment to savor, a memory to carry as you continued your walk through the sleepy coastal town. With a soft sigh, you set the cup down, letting the last steam curl upward like a small farewell. You stood, adjusted your umbrella, and stepped back into the gentle drizzle outside. The narrow cobblestone street welcomed you once more, ready to guide you toward the next discovery, the next moment of calm, the next quiet story waiting in this sleepy little town. The rain had lightened to a soft mist, and the town's warm glow followed you as you turned a corner, finding yourself facing the pier. The wooden planks stretched out over the dark, restless water, wet and shiny, reflecting the lamps that lined the walkway. The scent of salt and seaweed mingled with the faint aroma of baked goods from the town behind you. The air was crisp, fresh, and alive with the subtle hum of the ocean, reminding you that the world beyond the cobblestones still moved quietly and rhythmically. You stepped onto the pier slowly, letting your shoes tap gently against the wet wood. Each step echoed faintly, blending with the soft splash of waves lapping against the pilings below. You noticed the gentle sway of the pier, almost imperceptible as the tide nudged it back and forth. It wasn't unsettling, rather, it was comforting, a reminder that the ocean itself had its own slow, soothing rhythm. Looking out over the water, you could see the lighthouse standing tall in the distance, its beams sweeping lazily across the dark waves. The light cut through the mist like a gentle hand guiding the town to safety, reassuring and steady. You smiled to yourself. There was something inherently calming about lighthouses. Maybe it was the idea of someone, or something, keeping watch while the world slept. Maybe it was the way the light moved slowly, never rushing, always patient. Either way, it made you feel at ease. A soft gust of wind blew across the pier, carrying the briny scent of the sea and making the mist brush against your cheeks. Your umbrella bobbed slightly in the wind, and you laughed quietly at the thought of how silly you must look, holding it while the rain barely touched you anymore. The mist was more like a gentle kiss from the ocean than anything else, and you let yourself enjoy it. Every drop felt like a tiny reset, washing away the remnants of a long day and inviting calm to settle in. Along the pier, wooden benches offered spots to rest, their surfaces slick with moisture. You paused at one, leaning against the railing, letting your eyes wander across the water. Tiny ripples moved in slow circles where raindrops touched the surface. Occasionally, a wave licked the pier's edge, leaving behind a soft hiss before retreating. You imagined tiny sea creatures playing just beneath the surface, unnoticed by anyone but the patient sea. The thought made you chuckle. Who knew the ocean had its own secret audience of little dancers, performing nightly shows no one else saw? The wooden railing was smooth and worn from years of hands brushing against it. You ran your fingers along it for a moment, feeling the faint grooves carved by countless passers-by over the years. Some had probably leaned here to stare at the horizon, lost in thought, just like you were now. Some may have whispered secrets to the waves or tossed coins into the water for good luck. You imagined their lives intertwining with this very pier, leaving invisible traces that somehow made it feel alive. A small boat bobbed gently nearby, tied to a post with frayed rope. The paint was peeling, revealing layers of color from decades past. You noticed how the rain made the old wood glisten, highlighting the textures and cracks that told a story of countless voyages. The boat swayed lazily with the tide, the soft splash of water against its hull creating a steady, calming rhythm. You almost expected it to hum a tune, a sleepy lullaby for anyone wandering the pier. The sound of seagulls reached you again, though now much quieter than during the day. One perched on a post, ruffling its wet feathers, looking at you with an expression that could only be described as polite judgment. You chuckled softly. Even the seagulls here had learned to slow down, to enjoy the evening at their own pace. Occasionally, another bird flew past, wings cutting the misty air, and then was gone, leaving only the gentle echo of its call behind. You noticed the texture of the pier beneath your feet. Some planks were rough, others smooth and polished from years of footsteps. Tiny puddles reflected the lighthouse beam, creating miniature mirrors that shifted as the water moved. You tapped a foot lightly in one, sending a small ripple through its surface, and smiled at the effect. It was silly, perhaps, but satisfying, a reminder that even the smallest actions could create beauty in this quiet, rainy world. Along the sides of the pier, small lanterns glowed softly, their light bouncing off the wet wood and creating tiny halos in the mist. The effect was almost magical, like walking through a corridor of gentle stars that had fallen to earth. You slowed your pace even further, savoring the atmosphere, letting your breathing match the soft rhythm of the rain and waves. Time here didn't rush. It stretched, elastic and calm, bending to fit the gentle pace of the evening. A distant foghorn sounded from the horizon, deep and resonant. You felt the sound in your chest more than your ears, a reminder of the vastness of the ocean beyond the town. It was comforting, though proof that even the wild, untamed sea had its own slow rhythm, one that harmonized perfectly with the sleepy town and its gentle lights. You closed your eyes for a moment, letting the sound mingle with the rain, the waves, and the soft hum of the lanterns. The pier curved slightly, leading you to a small gazebo at the end. Its roof offered a brief shelter from the mist, and a wooden bench inside invited you to sit. You did, letting the quiet surround you. Looking out at the dark water, you noticed how the mist softened the horizon, blending sea and sky into a gentle grey. Every movement of the water, every soft ripple, seemed deliberate and peaceful, a meditation in motion. For a long moment, you simply sat there, sipping the warmth of your tea still lingering in your chest, listening to the world around you. The rain, the mist, the ocean, the soft sway of the pier, all of it came together in a perfect symphony of calm. You felt a smile tug at your lips, not because anything extraordinary had happened, but because everything felt just right, simple, slow, perfectly cozy. Eventually, you rose from the gazebo, feeling refreshed and calm. The pier had worked its quiet magic, and you knew that the walk back into the town would feel just as gentle, just as slow, just as warm. You stepped carefully along the wet planks, the lighthouse beam sweeping over you one last time, and felt the town's heartbeat in every puddle, every ripple, every soft step along the cobblestones waiting ahead. From the end of the pier, your eyes naturally followed the beam of the distant lighthouse. It wasn't just a light, it was a steady pulse in the dark, a comforting reminder that even in the quietest, rainiest corners of the world, there was guidance and safety. The lighthouse stood tall on a rocky outcrop, its white paint worn and flecked with years of salt and wind. but its presence was unwavering. You began walking toward it along a narrow path that curved gently along the shoreline. The mist from the rain hung low, softening the edges of the rocks and blurring the line between sea and sky. Each step brought the sound of the waves closer, their soft crashes blending seamlessly with the gentle patter of rain. The air smelled strongly of salt, wet stone, and the faint tang of seaweed, a combination that somehow felt grounding, anchoring you in the moment. The lighthouse grew larger with each step. Its base was surrounded by jagged rocks, slick with rain, and the occasional tide splashed against them with a playful hiss. You had to watch your footing carefully, but the effort was worth it. There was something mesmerizing about the contrast, the dark, restless sea, the misty night sky, and the warm golden glow emanating from the lighthouse's windows. It was a small island of calm in a vast, moving world. As you drew closer, you noticed the texture of the lighthouse's walls. The paint was chipped in places, revealing rough stone beneath. Tiny streaks of moss grew in the crevices, adding a touch of green to the otherwise muted palette. You ran your fingers lightly along the base, feeling the cool, damp surface and imagining all the hands that had touched it before you, keepers, visitors, wanderers just like yourself. Each mark was a story, each streak of moss a quiet witness to time passing slowly. A small wooden door invited you in. You hesitated for a moment, listening. Inside, the air smelled faintly of oil lamps and polished wood. The gentle creak of the spiral staircase promised quiet adventure, a climb that would reward you with a view unlike anything else in the town. You stepped inside, the door closing softly behind you, muting the sound of the rain outside. It felt like entering a sanctuary, a cozy haven amidst the mist and waves. The staircase spiraled upward, narrow but sturdy, each step worn smooth by countless visitors. Your hand followed the wooden railing instinctively, feeling the gentle grooves shaped by time. You moved slowly, savoring each step, letting the soft echo of your footsteps mingle with the distant crash of waves outside. Halfway up, you paused and peered through a small window. The sea stretched endlessly, mist curling above it like wisps of clouds that had decided to settle on the water. The lighthouse itself seemed to breathe with the tide, steady and patient, a guardian of the coast. At the top, the lighthouse chamber revealed a warm, golden light that filled the space. The great lens rotated lazily, casting its beam across the dark waters. You leaned against the railing and took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of the room seep into your damp clothes. The rain outside tapped gently on the glass panes, and the mist swirled around the base of the lighthouse like soft cotton. You smiled, realizing that the stormy night and the steady light created a perfect balance, calm within chaos, warmth within cold. You noticed the details of the chamber. Brass fittings gleamed softly, polished by hands who had worked here for decades. Charts and maps lined a small desk in the corner, edges curled slightly with age. A small lantern hung from a hook, casting shadows that danced lazily on the walls. You imagined the lighthouse keeper going about their nightly duties, checking the light, adjusting the oil, making sure the beacon never faltered. There was a quiet pride in the space, a sense that every corner had a purpose and every action mattered. A soft breeze wafted in from an open window, carrying the smell of the sea and the faintest hint of rain-soaked flowers from the cliffside. You closed your eyes for a moment, letting the combination of warmth, scent, and soft light wash over you. This was a place that existed outside of time, where the world slowed to the pace of your breathing, the rhythm of the waves, and the turning of the lighthouse beam. From your perch, you could see the town below, narrow cobblestone streets winding between warmly lit houses. Smoke curled from chimneys in lazy spirals, and the occasional lantern flickered as someone moved indoors. The pier stretched into the mist, the waves lapping at its edges, and the faint outline of the bookshop and cafe reminded you of the small comforts you had already enjoyed. The town looked magical from here, wrapped in rain, mist, and the soft embrace of evening. You noticed a small bench in the chamber and moved to sit. The warmth of the lighthouse, the gentle hum of the mechanism turning the light, and the faint echo of rain outside created a quiet lullaby. You let your thoughts drift, imagining all the nights this lighthouse had witnessed, the storms, the calm evenings, the travelers seeking guidance, and the quiet moments of reflection. Somehow, being here made you feel part of that continuum, a small, quiet witness to the rhythm of this sleepy coastal town. A soft chuckle escaped you as you imagined explaining to someone back home that you had climbed a lighthouse in the rain for a bedtime story walk. They would probably think it sounded dramatic or adventurous, but here it felt completely ordinary, completely natural. The extraordinary part wasn't in the climb or the view, it was in the calm, the stillness, the gentle way the world had slowed to let you enjoy it. Eventually, the urge to descend tugged at you. You didn't want to leave the warmth and light of the chamber, but the town below called softly. You stood, ran your fingers along the smooth railing one last time, and began the spiral staircase down. Each step echoed lightly, carrying the memory of the view, the scent, and the warmth with you. By the time you reached the base, the rain had eased further, now more of a mist, making the town glimmer as if it were sprinkled with tiny stars. Stepping outside, the lighthouse behind you cast a final, comforting beam across the street. The pier, the cafe, the bookshop, and the narrow cobblestones all seemed to nod in approval, welcoming you back to the next stage of your walk. You felt calm, cozy, and slightly enchanted, carrying with you the gentle rhythm of the waves, the steady light of the lighthouse, and the quiet heartbeat of the sleepy coastal town. Leaving the lighthouse behind, you returned to the cobblestone streets of the sleepy coastal town. The rain had softened into a gentle drizzle, leaving the stones glistening under the warm glow of the street lamps. As you wandered, your eyes caught a narrow, almost hidden alleyway between two tall buildings. It wasn't immediately noticeable, just a sliver of darkness and shadow, but something about it invited curiosity. It whispered, "Come, wanderer. There's a story tucked away here." The alley was narrower than the streets, barely wide enough for two people to pass side by side. Its cobblestones were worn, uneven, and slick with rain, reflecting the faint light from the town behind you. Tiny puddles had formed in the dips and cracks, each one creating a miniature mirror that captured the glow of nearby lamps. You step carefully, enjoying the playful challenge of navigating the little path. Walls of the alley were close enough that you could see every texture. One side was brick, rough and mossy, the green of the moss standing out beautifully against the dark red stones. The other wall was plaster, painted a soft pastel that had faded over time, streaked with raindrops and shadows. Tiny windows dotted both sides, some with curtains drawn, others opened slightly, hinting at cozy rooms inside. You imagine the lives behind those windows, quiet evenings, cups of tea, laughter, or maybe the soft hum of someone reading a book. A small lantern hung from a crooked iron hook halfway down the alley, casting a warm, flickering light on the wet stones. Its glow made the alley feel less like a hidden passage and more like a secret haven, a place designed for wanderers to pause and breathe. You noticed the soft sound of the rain dripping from rooftops above, mingling with the occasional distant splash of a puddle. It was a gentle symphony, composed by the alley itself. At the entrance of the alley, a tiny shop had a hand-painted sign, "Curiosities and Oddities." The letters were slightly crooked, charming in their imperfection. Inside, shelves were crowded with small trinkets, vintage keys, glass bottles filled with coloured sand, delicate figurines, and odd little clocks that ticked softly out of sync. You peered through the window, imagining the shopkeeper carefully dusting each shelf, humming quietly to themselves while arranging these treasures. It felt like stepping into a miniature world of wonders. A soft breeze carried the smell of rain-soaked flowers from a small planter tucked along the alley wall. The petals glistened, weighed down by droplets, creating a mosaic of colour that stood out against the muted stone and plaster. You leaned down slightly, letting a droplet slide down a leaf and feel the texture between your fingers. It was such a small thing, but in this quiet moment, it felt like a miracle. Nature, town, and rain all working together to slow your mind and invite calm. As you wandered deeper, the alley opened into a tiny courtyard. Its cobblestones were old, smoothed by countless footsteps, and a single fountain burbled quietly in the center. Water trickled gently over its stone edges, catching the light and creating miniature reflections that danced across nearby walls. A single bench sat off to the side, its wood polished smooth by years of use. You imagine sitting there, letting the gentle rhythm of the fountain and the drizzle above lull you into a state of calm. The alleyways had a playful way of surprising you. Around a corner, you noticed a tiny cat peeking from behind a barrel, its fur damp and sticking slightly to its small frame. Its eyes followed you, curious but cautious. You smiled softly and whispered, "Don't worry, I'm just passing through." The cat twitched its tail and disappeared into the shadows, leaving you with a quiet sense of companionship. Even the alley seemed alive, full of little mysteries waiting to be noticed. You walked slowly, savoring each detail. The smell of rain on stone, the occasional creak of a shutter above, the distant sound of waves crashing on the shore, all these small elements combined into a gentle lullaby. Time felt stretchy here, no longer measured by minutes or hours, but by the soft rhythm of your footsteps, the whisper of wind through narrow walls, and the delicate tap of droplets falling from roof tiles. Several small doorways along the alley invited curiosity. One led to a tiny cafe, only a table or two inside, where a warm light glowed and the faint aroma of pastries hinted at comfort. Another doorway revealed a miniature art studio, paints and brushes arranged neatly, waiting for the next quiet inspiration. You imagined the people who lived and worked here, hidden from the busier streets, finding solace and magic in these narrow spaces. A faint stairway spiraled upward at the far end of the alley. The steps were uneven, stone worn smooth in places, and ivy climbed along the walls beside them. You followed it slowly, feeling like you were uncovering a secret staircase to a quiet terrace above the town. From the top, the rooftops spread out before you, rain, slicked and sparkling under the lamp glow. The pier and lighthouse were visible in the distance, the soft mist curling above the waves like cotton. You paused here for a long moment, taking it all in. The alleyways had a rhythm of their own, a quiet, intimate heartbeat that the main streets could never offer. They whispered stories of hidden moments, of tiny joys, of quiet lives unfolding in parallel with your own. And just for a moment, you felt like you were part of it, a wandering soul embraced by the town's secret corners. Eventually, the stairs led you back down to the main path, the cozy warmth of the town awaiting you. But the alleyways had left their mark. You carried with you the memory of narrow passages, soft shadows, tiny fountains, damp stone, and hidden life. They reminded you that even in the calm, sleepy town, there were secrets waiting for those willing to slow down, look closely, and wander without hurry. You stepped back onto the main street, the lanterns glowing warmly, the faint hum of the sea nearby, and the rain still pattering softly. The hidden alleyways had revealed their magic, a gentle pause, a whisper of wonder in an otherwise ordinary evening. And with each step forward, you knew the town had more stories to tell, more quiet corners to explore, and more moments of calm waiting just for you. As you left the hidden alleyways behind, the soft glow of a familiar street lamp drew your eyes to a small bakery tucked into the corner of the cobblestone street. Its windows were fogged slightly from the warmth inside, and a faint, irresistible aroma drifted through the misty evening air. Fresh bread, sweet pastries, and a hint of cinnamon that made your stomach sigh in anticipation. The bakery seemed to whisper, "Come in, just for a moment, we've been waiting for you." You pushed open the wooden door, and a small bell chimed lightly, announcing your arrival. Inside, the bakery was a warm haven from the damp streets. Wooden shelves lined the walls, overflowing with golden loaves, flaky croissants, and delicate pastries that looked like miniature works of art. A gentle light hung from the ceiling, casting a soft glow across the room, and the faint hum of an oven created a soothing background rhythm. Behind the counter, a baker waved at you with flour-dusted hands, a welcoming smile on their face. "Evening. Care for something sweet to warm you up?" they asked. You nodded, feeling instantly at ease, and allowed yourself to be guided toward the display case. Your eyes wandered over the treats, each one tempting you with its golden crust and sugary topping. There was a quiet magic here, a sense that each pastry was crafted not just to fill bellies, but to comfort hearts. You chose a small almond croissant and a warm cup of cocoa, the steam rising from both in lazy spirals. Taking a seat by the window, you watched the rain, slicked street outside, droplets reflecting the soft glow of lamps like tiny dancing stars. The bakery felt like a little bubble of warmth, a place where time slowed to match the gentle rhythm of your breath. You lifted the croissant and took a small bite, letting the buttery, flaky layers melt in your mouth. It was comforting, satisfying in a way that went beyond hunger, pure, cozy delight. From your seat, you could see the town passing by in soft, misty silhouettes. Occasionally, someone would hurry past with an umbrella, or a cat would dart across the street, tail flicking as if it had a secret mission. You watched it all with quiet amusement, smiling at the little dramas of the evening. The bakery gave you permission to slow down, to observe without rush, and to enjoy the small pleasures tucked into a rainy night. The warmth from the oven seeped into your clothes, chasing away the damp chill from the streets. You noticed the scent of vanilla, sugar, and bread weaving through the room, wrapping around you like a soft blanket. A gentle hum of conversation drifted from a few other patrons, soft greetings, polite murmurs, and the occasional laugh, all blending with the sound of rain tapping on the window. The result was a symphony of comfort, a lullaby for the senses. A small shelf near your table held jars of preserves, honey, and homemade jam. You imagined the hours spent stirring, simmering, and carefully labeling each jar. It seemed like the bakery itself was a labor of love, a place where small acts of care transformed into warmth and sweetness for anyone who wandered in. You could almost feel the hands that shaped each loaf, brushed each pastry, and poured each cup of cocoa. Each touch left a quiet imprint, a sense of human connection wrapped in simplicity. You sipped the cocoa slowly, savoring its rich, velvety warmth, and felt the tension of the day melt further. Outside, the rain had softened to a drizzle, and the street lamps cast elongated reflections in the puddles along the cobblestones. The town looked like a painting through the fogged window pane, muted yet alive with tiny details, the flicker of a lantern here, the shadow of a passerby there, the gentle sway of a hanging sign in the breeze. A soft chuckle escaped you as you noticed a small kitten perched on a windowsill outside, trying to catch the few lingering raindrops with its tiny paws. You imagined it being the bakery's unofficial guardian, keeping an eye on the evening while waiting for crumbs to fall from the door. It was a silly thought, but one that made the warmth in your chest grow, reminding you that the world, even in a sleepy coastal town, was full of small wonders. The baker brought over a second pastry on the house, a tiny tart with a delicate lattice crust, filled with warm, spiced apples. You accepted it gratefully, enjoying the unexpected generosity. It felt like the town itself had conspired to offer you comfort. The bakery, the warmth, the rain, the gentle mist, and the quiet company of strangers, all creating a cocoon of calm. You took a bite, letting the sweetness and spice linger on your tongue, and smiled at the simple joy of the moment. You leaned back in your chair, feeling the cozy warmth settle deeper into your body. The bakery was more than a place to eat. It was a pause, a gentle interlude in your walk through the town. The smells, sights, and sounds blended into a slow melody, reminding you that happiness often resided in small, deliberate moments: a croissant, a cup of cocoa, the gentle tap of rain on a window, the quiet smile of a stranger behind a counter. Eventually, the urge to continue your walk returned, but you lingered a moment longer, savoring the cozy atmosphere. You watched the rain mist the cobblestones outside, the lamps reflecting softly in the puddles, and felt a calm satisfaction settle over you. The bakery had offered more than warmth for your body. It had offered warmth for your mind and soul, a gentle pause that you would carry with you through the rest of the town. You rose from your seat, brushed crumbs from your fingers, and thanked the baker quietly. They waved with a flurry hand, and you stepped back into the misty street. The narrow cobblestone streets stretched ahead, glistening under the street lamps, guiding you onward to the next discovery. The bakery's warmth lingered in your chest, the taste of sweet pastries still on your tongue, and the quiet comfort of the town's rainy evening followed you like a soft shadow. The sleepy coastal town seemed to hum around you, every puddle, every lantern, every quiet window telling a small story. With each step, you carried the cozy magic of the bakery, knowing that more corners of this gentle town awaited your wandering heart. And so you continued, letting the rain, the cobblestones, and the soft lights guide you toward the next small wonder. Leaving the warm glow of the bakery behind, you found yourself wandering toward the edge of the sleepy coastal town. The cobblestone streets gradually gave way to a softer, damp path lined with low bushes and wildflowers, glistening with raindrops. In the distance, you could hear the ocean stretching endlessly, waves tumbling and sighing against the rocks below. The sound was steady, rhythmic, and oddly comforting, like the heartbeat of the town itself. The path led you to the coastal cliff, a vantage point where the town, the sea, and the sky merged into a quiet panorama. The wind picked up slightly here, carrying the scent of salt and wet earth. It ruffled your hair and brushed your cheeks with a cool touch, gentle enough to make you shiver and smile at the same time. You wrapped your coat a little tighter and took a slow, deliberate step forward, savoring the expansive view. From the cliff, the town below looked magical. Tiny houses clustered together, their windows glowing warmly in the mist. Narrow streets twisted between them like silver ribbons, and the pier jutted out into the dark water, waves gently kissing its edges. Smoke curled lazily from chimneys, and the occasional lantern flickered softly. The entire scene seemed like a painting, muted, serene, and full of quiet stories waiting to be noticed. Your eyes wandered to the ocean. The waves crashed against the base of the cliff with a gentle, repetitive rhythm. The mist rose from the spray, mingling with the light rain to create a dreamy haze over the water. Occasionally, a seagull glided by, wings outstretched, riding the wind with effortless grace. You felt a quiet envy of their freedom, but also a sense of calm, knowing you could watch them from a safe, cozy height. A narrow stone railing lined the edge of the cliff, damp and cool under your fingers. You leaned against it lightly, feeling the subtle vibrations of the wind and the distant roar of the sea. It was the kind of place that invited reflection, a natural pause for thought. You let your gaze drift over the horizon, noticing the subtle changes in color as the rain clouds mingled with the evening sky, soft grays, hints of muted gold, and the faintest blush of pink as the day reluctantly faded into night. A small footpath meandered along the cliff's edge, almost hidden among the wild grasses. You followed it slowly, careful of slippery patches, and found tiny surprises along the way. A patch of wildflowers glistened with raindrops, delicate and stubborn, bending but not breaking under the weight of the water. Tiny snails moved leisurely across the stones, their slow, deliberate pace reminding you that life had its own rhythm. No need to rush, no need to hurry. The sound of the waves became a soft backdrop to your thoughts. Tap, tap, tap of rain on leaves and stones blended with the ocean's continuous hum, creating a natural lullaby. You closed your eyes for a moment, inhaling the salty, earthy air, and felt the stress of the day melt away. It was a rare kind of peace, the kind that seeps in quietly, without fanfare, leaving a gentle warmth in your chest. A sudden breeze brought a playful swirl of mist, and you chuckled softly as it brushed past you, soaking the tips of your hair and dampening your coat slightly. You imagined it as the ocean's way of greeting visitors, a soft, teasing hello from the vast, untamed world beyond the town. It made the scene feel alive, interactive, and somehow more magical. You continued walking along the cliff path and came across a small wooden bench perched on a protruding rock. Its surface was damp and weathered, but it looked inviting. You sat down carefully, letting your legs dangle slightly over the edge. From here, the full expanse of the ocean stretched out before you, waves rolling endlessly, meeting the horizon in a soft blur. The lighthouse in the distance cast a comforting beam across the water, sweeping lazily in its eternal watch. The mist, the rain, the soft lapping of waves, and the occasional call of a distant seabird created a perfect symphony of calm. You felt connected to the town, the ocean, and the sky above, a small part of something much larger. There was a subtle humour in the thought that this quiet, rainy cliff held more stories than most people would ever notice. Lovers, wanderers, dreamers, and solitary walkers like yourself all had left tiny marks here in footsteps, laughter, whispered secrets, or simply in their quiet presence. As you sat on the bench, your eyes caught the movement of the tide far below. Whitecaps tumbled and foamed, glittering briefly in the soft, diffused light. You imagined tiny creatures living unseen in the waves, little dancers performing nightly rituals that no one witnessed. A small smile tugged at your lips. Sometimes the ordinary world was extraordinary when viewed closely in slow, quiet moments like this. The cliff's edge offered more than just views. You noticed the texture of the ground beneath your feet, gritty, wet, alive with tiny plants struggling to survive. A faint path led slightly away from the main viewpoint, toward a small grove of windswept bushes and grass. You followed it slowly, stepping carefully, and found a little hidden nook, where the cliff formed a slight curve and the wind was softened. Here you could sit and feel cocooned, wrapped by nature, with the town glowing faintly behind you and the endless ocean stretching forward. You leaned back against the curved stone, closing your eyes, and let the cliff's calm wash over you. The rain, softened into a gentle mist, kissed your cheeks. The lighthouse beam rotated lazily across the horizon. Waves whispered to the rocks, and the faint scent of salt and wet earth filled your senses. Time seemed to slow, every second stretching into a moment of complete serenity. Eventually, the call of the cobblestone streets pulled you back, but you rose slowly, carrying the cliff's quiet magic with you. Each step toward the town below felt lighter, calmer, and more connected to the sleepy coastal world around you. The lighthouse, the pier, the alleys, and the bakery had all led you here, to this edge of the world, where sea and sky met in gentle, misty embrace. And as you walked back, the cliff's peace lingered like a soft melody in your chest, guiding you gently toward the next part of your rainy, cozy evening. From the cliffside, you made your way back toward the heart of the sleepy coastal town, following a winding path that led down toward the water's edge. The rain had softened to a gentle drizzle, and the scent of salt mixed with wet wood and seaweed welcomed you as you approached the fishing dock. The gentle hum of the ocean and the soft slap of water against wooden pilings created a soothing rhythm, perfect for slowing your thoughts and stepping fully into the evening. The dock stretched out into the water like an invitation, worn planks glistening under the warm glow of lanterns. Each board bore the faint grooves and cracks of years of footsteps, and the smell of damp wood mingled with fish, nets, and the faintest hint of smoke from a distant fisherman's lantern. There was an authenticity here, a quiet magic that only comes from places that have been lived in, worked in, and loved by generations. Small fishing boats bobbed gently alongside the dock, tied with frayed ropes that creaked softly as the tide nudged them. Some were painted bright colors, now dulled and chipped by rain and sun, while others were simple, unadorned, yet sturdy and dependable. You leaned on the railing for a moment, watching the tiny reflections of lanterns ripple across the water's surface, and felt a serene calm wash over you. Each boat seemed to tell a story: trips taken, storms weathered, and early mornings spent chasing the horizon. A faint laugh reached your ears, carried by the soft wind. A lone fisherman was cleaning a small catch, his hands moving carefully, methodically. The act was quiet, almost meditative. You watched as he worked, appreciating the rhythm of his motions. It reminded you that even the simplest tasks, performed with care, could become a kind of art. His presence, though brief, added a sense of life and continuity to the quiet dock. The smell of salt and the sea was strong here, and you took a deep breath, letting it fill your lungs. It was grounding, refreshing, almost like the ocean itself was whispering calm into your mind. The waves lapped gently at the pilings, occasionally sending tiny sprays of mist into the air that brushed softly against your cheeks. You shivered slightly, then smiled, enjoying the playful touch of the sea on this cozy evening. Along the dock, small crates and barrels hinted at a bustling life earlier in the day. Nets, coiled neatly or left draped across the side, glistened with residual water, each strand catching the lantern light like a delicate thread of silver. You imagined the hands that had handled these tools, each knuckle and finger calloused from years of work, shaping a rhythm that had guided the town's life for decades. A wooden bench sat at the edge of the dock, inviting visitors to sit and breathe. You made your way toward it and settled down, letting your legs dangle slightly above the wet planks. From here, you could see the lighthouse in the distance, its steady beam slicing through the misty night. The town's rooftops stretched behind you, small windows glowing warmly, tiny chimneys sending thin spirals of smoke into the evening air. Everything felt connected, the town, the ocean, the pier, and now this dock, all part of a quiet, harmonious whole. Seagulls called faintly in the distance, circling the boats with lazy grace. Occasionally, one landed on a piling nearby, tilting its head as if studying you with polite curiosity. You smiled softly and whispered a gentle greeting, amused by the idea that even seagulls had personalities. The occasional flap of wings and soft squawk added subtle liveliness to the otherwise calm scene. The water beneath the dock was dark, shifting and full of subtle movement. Tiny ripples reflected lantern light, dancing across the surface as if the sea itself were performing a gentle, hypnotic ballet. You imagined small fish darting just beneath the water unseen, playing in the quiet depths. Even the unseen life added richness to the moment. A reminder that quiet doesn't mean empty, it simply means alive in different ways. The dock had its own music, the soft creak of the wooden boards, the rhythmic lapping of water, the distant hum of the lighthouse, and the occasional splash of a fish breaking the surface. You closed your eyes briefly, letting the sounds mingle with your own breathing. It was a meditation of a sort, a lullaby created by nature and human life working together. The gentle drizzle tapped on your coat and hat, a percussion to the symphony of the evening. A small lantern hung at the very end of the dock, casting a golden pool of light across the final boards. It illuminated the water's gentle ripples and made the wet wood glimmer like polished amber. You imagined tiny stories hidden in the glow, romantic strolls, quiet conversations, secrets whispered into the night, all leaving invisible imprints on the planks beneath your feet. The dock felt alive with history, subtle and gentle, inviting anyone who wandered here to slow down and notice. You lingered on the bench for a while, taking in the vastness of the ocean and the quiet life of the dock. The night was not silent, it was full of gentle sound, soft light, and invisible stories. You felt a quiet gratitude for being allowed to witness it, a sense of peace that comes from stepping into a world moving at a slower, more deliberate pace. Eventually, the time came to leave, but the dock's calm accompanied you. Each step back toward the cobblestone streets felt lighter, as though the gentle rhythm of the waves and the subtle magic of the fishing dock had seeped into your steps. Lanterns reflected off the wet stones, guiding your path, and the town seemed to hum a quiet welcome back, a gentle reminder that each corner of this sleepy coastal place had its own charm and rhythm. You paused briefly to glance back at the dock one last time. The lanterns shimmered on the wet planks, the boats bobbed softly, and the lighthouse beamed steadily in the distance. A small, secret smile tugged at your lips. The fishing dock had offered more than scenery, it had offered calm perspective, and a gentle reminder that even the smallest corners hold beauty when observed with care. With that thought, you continued your walk, letting the gentle drizzle guide you onward, deeper into the heart of the town and toward the next quiet discovery of the evening. After leaving the fishing dock behind, you wandered back toward the heart of the sleepy coastal town. The cobblestone streets glistened softly under the lingering drizzle, and the warm glow of lanterns reflected in puddles like tiny, scattered stars. It was then that you noticed the welcoming sight of a small inn tucked into the corner of a quiet street. A place that promised warmth, comfort, and the kind of calm that comes from being away from the world's rush. The inn's exterior was charming and slightly old-fashioned. Its timber beams were dark and polished, contrasting gently with the cream-colored plaster walls. Windows glowed warmly, and soft curtains fluttered in the evening breeze. A small sign swung above the door, hand-painted with the name, The Harbour's Rest. The swinging sign creaked softly, a gentle sound that felt like a secret welcome, inviting travellers and wanderers alike to step inside. You pushed open the door and were greeted by a soft chime, announcing your arrival. The warmth inside wrapped around you immediately, a cozy embrace that contrasted delightfully with the damp chill outside. The scent of pine, firewood, and a hint of baking bread floated through the air, blending perfectly with the faint trace of sea salt still clinging to your coat. You felt the tension of the walk melt further, replaced by the gentle comfort of being somewhere truly welcoming. The inn's common room was small but inviting. Wooden tables and chairs were scattered across the space, each polished smooth by years of use. A fireplace crackled softly in one corner, its flames dancing and sending warmth throughout the room. Shelves lined the walls, filled with books, trinkets, and small mementos left by guests over the years. Everything about the room suggested care and quiet charm. Every corner seemed to have a story, every object a gentle history. A kind-faced innkeeper looked up from behind the counter, smiling as you entered. "Evening, you've come at the perfect time. Care for a hot drink and a moment by the fire." They gestured toward a small armchair near the hearth, already warmed by the dancing flames. You nodded, feeling grateful for the invitation, and made your way to the chair. The soft rug beneath your feet felt warm against your damp shoes, and the gentle crackle of the fire created a sense of security and serenity. You settled into the chair, letting the warmth seep into your body. Outside, the drizzle continued softly, but inside, the inn was a sanctuary. You could hear the occasional hum of conversation from a corner table, a faint scrape of cutlery from the kitchen, and the comforting pop and crackle of the fire. It was as if the inn itself was breathing, alive in quiet, understated ways that made you feel at home. A tray arrived at your side, carrying a cup of steaming tea and a small plate of honey biscuits. The aroma was irresistible, sweet, warm, and slightly spiced. You took a slow sip of the tea, feeling it soothe your throat and warm your chest. The biscuits were crisp yet tender, their sweetness lingering on your tongue. You closed your eyes for a moment, letting the flavors and warmth combine with the cozy environment to create a perfect bubble of calm. The inn's details were a delight to explore. The wooden beams above were etched with tiny carvings, initials, and symbols left by travelers long ago. A small clock ticked gently on the mantel, marking time without hurry. Candles flickered softly on side tables, their golden light casting playful shadows on the walls. A few old paintings hung at uneven angles, each depicting coastal scenes, stormy seas, or quiet village streets. You studied them with a soft smile, imagining the hands that had painted, hung, or framed them, each leaving a quiet trace of care. From your chair, you could glance out the window to the streets below. Rain, slicked cobblestones shimmered in the lantern light, reflecting the gentle motion of the evening. Occasionally, a cat would dash across the street, tail high and proud, or a distant figure would hurry past under an umbrella. Everything seemed calm, quiet, and perfectly ordinary in a magical, almost cinematic way. You let the scene wash over you, feeling part of the town's gentle rhythm. A small fireplace nook invited guests to linger longer, and you leaned slightly back to listen to the faint whisper of the fire. The combination of warmth, soft light, and quiet activity created a gentle lullaby for the senses. You imagined the inn at different hours, morning, sunlight spilling across the tables, the faint smell of baking bread, the gentle clatter of dishes and voices, all of it woven into a comforting tapestry of daily life. Your mind wandered briefly to the travelers who had passed through here before you. Sailors, wanderers, families, and solitary souls, all had found a brief haven in this little inn. Each guest had left a subtle mark, perhaps unnoticed, in the polished wood, the creased cushions, or the slightly tilted picture frames. It was a gentle reminder that even ordinary places accumulate extraordinary stories over time. You took another sip of tea, letting the warmth spread slowly from your chest to your fingers and toes. Outside, the drizzle continued softly, and the town glimmered in the misty lamplight. Inside, the inn's quiet charm wrapped around you like a blanket, allowing you to pause, breathe, and simply exist in the moment. You felt a gentle contentment, a soft happiness that required nothing more than observation and presence. Eventually, you rose, feeling refreshed yet reluctant to leave the comfort of the inn. You thanked the innkeeper quietly, and they smiled knowingly, as if they understood that this was more than a mere visit. It was a moment of rest, a brief pause in the rhythm of life. You stepped back into the streets, the soft drizzle kissing your cheeks once more. Lanterns reflected on the wet cobblestones, guiding your way toward the next discovery of the evening. The cozy inn had offered more than warmth and tea. It had offered a sanctuary, a gentle heartbeat in the middle of the rainy town. You carried that feeling with you as you walked onward, knowing that each step would bring more corners to explore, more quiet stories to witness, and more small, magical moments waiting in the misty streets of the sleepy coastal town. After leaving the cozy inn behind, your path led you through the misty streets toward the outskirts of the town. There, tucked between low hills and the edge of the harbour, you noticed a narrow wooden bridge stretching across a quiet inlet. Its planks were slick from the drizzle, and the wooden rails were darkened by years of rain and salty sea air. The bridge seemed almost like a secret passage, inviting travelers to pause, look around, and feel the rhythm of the coastal night. As you stepped onto the bridge, it creaked softly under your weight, a gentle announcement to the world that you were passing through. The sound was neither alarming nor harsh. It was part of the bridge's charm, a reminder that every old plank had witnessed countless footsteps over the years. You smiled to yourself, imagining the countless souls who had crossed here, fishermen heading home, children chasing lanterns, lovers sneaking a quiet kiss, and wanderers like yourself seeking calm in the night. The bridge was narrow, only wide enough for two people to pass side by side, and the wet planks required careful steps. You walked slowly, enjoying the slight wobble underfoot, which made the experience feel alive and intimate. Each step echoed softly in the evening air, mingling with the gentle patter of rain on the water below. The sound was hypnotic, a natural lullaby that invited calm and reflection. Below, the water of the inlet rippled gently, reflecting the muted lights of the town and the soft glow of lanterns along the shore. Tiny fish occasionally broke the surface, sending concentric ripples across the water, catching the light like fleeting stars. You paused to watch them for a moment, marveling at the small, quiet life that thrived beneath the surface. Even in this calm and sleepy town, life was active in delicate, hidden ways. The wooden rails of the bridge were smooth from years of hands brushing them, polished by countless touches. You leaned lightly against one, feeling the cool, damp wood under your fingers. The bridge offered a vantage point unlike any other. The harbour to one side, the open inlet ahead, and the distant town glowing warmly through the mist. From here, you could take in both the intimate and the vast, a gentle reminder that the world was both small and expansive at the same time. A soft gust of wind rustled the nearby reeds and grasses, carrying the faint scent of salt and wet earth. The mist rising from the water combined with the drizzle, creating a dreamy haze that softened the outlines of boats, buildings, and distant hills. You inhaled slowly, letting the scent and the cool air fill your lungs, feeling completely present. There was something meditative about walking across a bridge like this, suspended between two worlds, the town behind, safe and cozy, and the open water ahead, mysterious yet inviting. The narrow bridge encouraged quiet observation. You noticed the texture of the planks, the occasional knot in the wood, and the faint traces of sea spray that had dried into subtle patterns. A small lantern hung halfway across, swaying slightly in the breeze, casting a soft golden light on the wet wood. Its glow reflected in the water below, creating a mirror image that made the bridge feel longer, more magical, like a pathway into a dream. A lone heron stood in the shallow water beneath the bridge, perfectly still, its reflection mirrored almost flawlessly on the rippling surface. You watched quietly, careful not to disturb it. The heron seemed like a guardian of this hidden part of the town, patient, elegant, and calm. Occasionally, it shifted its weight, ruffling its feathers, reminding you that even in stillness, life continued in subtle, beautiful movements. Halfway across, the bridge curved slightly, offering a view of both the inlet and the town. The rooftops glimmered in the wet light, lanterns flickered in windows, and the occasional chimney puffed a thin stream of smoke into the evening air. You paused here, letting your gaze drift over the scene. Everything felt harmonized: the town, the bridge, the water, the distant hills, and the quiet rhythm of rain. The world seemed to breathe along with you, soft, slow, and gentle. A faint chuckle escaped you as a small wind caught a loose scarf, sending it fluttering against the rails. You imagined the bridge itself playing a tiny game with travelers, teasing them gently while inviting them to linger. This playful, subtle humor made the moment even more endearing, adding a human touch to the natural and architectural beauty surrounding you. As you reached the far end of the bridge, you could see the path leading into a small grove of trees, their leaves shimmering with raindrops. The wooden planks beneath your feet had led you safely across, but the experience had been more than a passage. It had been a slow, reflective journey. You felt lighter, calmer, more attuned to the gentle rhythms of the town, the water, and the rain. The bridge, though narrow and unassuming, had offered more than a simple crossing. It had invited observation, reflection, and a playful curiosity. It had shown you the magic in ordinary details and not in the wood, the flicker of a lantern, the patient stance of a heron, or the gentle sway of a scarf. All of it reminded you that even in a sleepy coastal town, wonder was present for those willing to notice. You took a final step onto the path beyond the bridge, pausing to look back at the narrow wooden structure stretching across the inlet. Its worn planks glistened softly in the mist, lanterns casting pools of golden light on the damp wood. The bridge seemed almost to sigh, satisfied with its quiet work of connecting places and moments, and you felt a subtle sense of gratitude for the calm it had offered. Continuing along the path, you felt the bridge's tranquility linger in your chest like a soft melody. It had been a gentle interlude, a place of pause, reflection, and subtle magic. The town beyond awaited, full of quiet streets, hidden corners, and cozy lights, ready to offer the next chapter of your rainy, peaceful evening. After crossing the narrow wooden bridge, your path gently led you toward the heart of the coastal town once more. The drizzle had slowed to a fine mist, and the streets were empty, except for the soft glow of lanterns and the occasional flicker of light from a distant window. As you turned a familiar corner, the quiet village square unfolded before you, a small, serene gathering place at the center of the town, steeped in gentle history and quiet charm. The square was paved with worn cobblestones, each one polished smooth from centuries of footsteps. Puddles reflected the lanterns overhead, creating little floating pools of gold and silver light. A faint mist rose from the damp stones, weaving through the warm lamplight and lending the space a dreamlike, ethereal quality. You slowed your steps, letting your gaze wander over the details, absorbing the quiet magic that seemed to linger in every corner. At the center of the square stood a small fountain, its stone edges slick with rain. The water trickled softly, mingling with the distant murmur of the sea and the light patter of rain. The fountain was modest, yet charming, carved with delicate patterns that suggested age and care. You imagined townsfolk passing by over the years, pausing to toss a coin or simply admire the gentle motion of the water, each act adding a small layer of memory to the place. Around the square, small shops and cottages formed a cozy perimeter. Their windows glowed warmly, and faint smells of baked bread, roasted coffee, and pine drifted through the evening air. Some doors were slightly ajar, letting soft light spill onto the cobblestones. A small bell tinkled faintly in one shop, as if welcoming an invisible visitor. The combination of smells, light, and quiet movement created an atmosphere that was simultaneously alive and deeply peaceful. A wooden bench near the fountain invited you to pause, so you settled onto it, letting the damp chill of the evening settle into a gentle comfort. From here, you could take in the full expanse of the square. The cobblestones, the fountain, the softly glowing shops, and the distant outline of rooftops created a scene that felt like a careful painting. Each element, though ordinary on its own, combined to form a space filled with stories, memories, and quiet wonder. A faint laugh echoed from a distant corner, carried lightly on the misty breeze. You smiled softly, imagining the source, a couple of children, perhaps long gone to bed, or a townsperson recalling a fond memory. The square seemed to hold these echoes like a gentle secret, preserving small joys and human warmth within its stones. Even in the absence of people, it felt lively, alive with the subtle rhythms of daily life. The lanterns lining the square swayed slightly in the gentle breeze, casting dancing shadows on the cobblestones. Each lamp had a warm glow, not too bright, not too dim, just enough to create a soft, welcoming light. You traced the shadows with your eyes, noticing the subtle play of shapes, the way each puddle caught a reflection, and the delicate shimmer of rain still clinging to leaves and windowsills. It was the kind of place that invited quiet observation, a space to notice small wonders without hurry. From your vantage point, you could see a small alley leading out of the square, its stone walls covered with creeping ivy. The plants were wet from the drizzle, their green leaves glistening under the lantern light. You imagined tiny creatures hiding among the ivy, and a small smile tugged at your lips. Even the quiet corners of the square seemed to have their own life, waiting for those patient enough to see. A little bakery on the edge of the square had left a tiny wooden sign propped against its door, announcing tomorrow's fresh bread. The simple gesture of care, small, quiet, and thoughtful, made the square feel even more alive. A place where attention to small details mattered. You could almost hear the baker imagining early risers smelling the bread before the sun fully rose, and it made you chuckle quietly at the gentle, human rhythms hidden behind the cozy facade. The fountain's soft trickle seemed to mingle with distant waves from the harbour, creating a layered lullaby of water. You leaned back slightly, closing your eyes for a moment, letting the subtle symphony wash over you. The damp air, the faint saltiness, and the gentle illumination of lanterns combined to form a sense of calm, so deep it almost felt like a soft embrace. A small cat appeared, padding softly across the square, its paws making almost no sound on the slick stones. It paused briefly by the fountain, glanced at the water, and flicked its tail before disappearing into a nearby alley. You couldn't help but smile at its quiet, purposeful wanderings. Even the cat seemed to respect the gentle, reflective mood of the square, moving with grace and unhurried curiosity. Time here seemed suspended. The square offered no urgency, no need to move quickly, only the invitation to observe, breathe, and exist fully in the moment. Each detail, the light, the sound, the damp cobblestones, the fountain, the ivy, and the wandering cat blended into a soft, meditative rhythm. You felt a deep connection with the town, the space, and the quiet pulse of evening life. Eventually, the subtle call of the streets beyond the square guided you onward. You rose from the bench, casting a last glance over the fountain and the softly glowing lanterns. The square had offered you a gentle pause, a space to reflect, observe, and feel the quiet heartbeat of the town. With each step along the cobblestones, the magic of this place lingered, a warm thread of calm woven into your walk through the misty, sleepy coastal evening. The quiet village square, humble yet alive, remained behind you like a gentle memory. Its puddles reflected lanterns and stars alike, and its soft echoes of past footsteps reminded you that even small spaces carry stories, comfort, and warmth. Carrying that calm in your chest, you continued deeper into the heart of the town, eager for the next chapter of your rainy, cozy exploration. After leaving the quiet village square behind, your steps led you toward a tucked, away path, barely noticeable between two old stone buildings. The path sloped gently upward, lined with wet cobblestones glistening under the soft lantern light. The rain had slowed to a delicate drizzle, and the scent of salt and earth mingled with the faint aroma of blooming flowers, guiding you forward with a gentle invitation. Soon, you found yourself at the entrance of a secluded seaside garden, a hidden gem perched on the edge of the town, where the land met the sea. The garden was small, yet intimate and full of charm. Its winding paths curved gracefully through clusters of flowers and low shrubs, each leaf glistening with raindrops. The lanterns here were fewer but warmer, nestled among plants, casting soft golden circles on the damp earth. The gentle mist rolling in from the ocean softened the edges of the garden, turning every flower and leaf into a delicate watercolor of muted colors and textures. A low stone wall marked the garden's boundary, moss-covered and slippery in places, yet inviting exploration. You leaned lightly on it, feeling the cool, damp surface under your fingertips. From this vantage point, you could glimpse the ocean beyond, waves rolling gently in the distance, and the soft lights of the town below twinkling like fireflies. The combination of garden, sea, and town created a layered serenity that made every breath feel lighter, every heartbeat slower. A small wooden bench sat under a flowering arbor, its surface still wet from the drizzle. You moved toward it and settled down, feeling the wood's gentle coolness through your coat. The flowers above dripped tiny droplets into the surrounding soil, and the faint scent of salt water mingled with the earthy aroma of damp soil and blossoms. You closed your eyes for a moment, letting the delicate sounds and smells of the garden wash over you like a soft lullaby. A subtle breeze stirred the leaves and petals, sending tiny droplets into the air. Some landed on your cheeks, a playful reminder from nature of its presence. You smiled softly, imagining the garden itself greeting you, welcoming your quiet steps and thoughtful gaze. Even in its stillness, it felt alive, full of secrets and stories whispered in the rustle of leaves and the gentle sway of flowers. Paths wound through the garden like miniature rivers, guiding visitors past clusters of roses, lavender, and wildflowers swaying lightly in the breeze. Each plant was heavy with rain, sparkling faintly in the lantern glow. You imagined that fairies might hide among the petals, or tiny creatures might pause on the damp leaves to watch your journey. It was easy to suspend disbelief here. The garden invited quiet imagination and gentle wonder. A small stone fountain bubbled softly at the garden's center. Water trickled over the edges, forming tiny rivulets that glistened in the lantern light. You leaned slightly closer, noticing the delicate patterns etched into the fountain's surface, swirls, vines, and small flowers carved with care. The sound of the water, mingling with the soft patter of rain and distant ocean waves, created a peaceful symphony, grounding your thoughts and slowing your mind. Lanterns hung in subtle clusters along the pathways, their soft glow reflecting in puddles and droplets on petals. Shadows danced gently as leaves swayed in the breeze, creating playful patterns across the damp earth. You imagined the garden as a living painting, each moment slightly different from the last, each step revealing new textures, colors, and tiny wonders. A small wooden gate led to a stone overlook at the garden's edge. You approached it carefully, leaning over the low wall to see the ocean spread out below. The waves shimmered faintly under the misty night sky, rolling in slow, steady rhythms that seemed to echo the garden's heartbeat. Lanterns from the town below twinkled like distant stars, and the lighthouse in the far distance cast a gentle, sweeping beam across the water. The scene was serene and vast, a perfect combination of intimacy and expansiveness. A gentle cat, fur damp from the drizzle, emerged from behind a bush, pausing to watch you. It meandered across the path with quiet grace, occasionally brushing against a flower or lantern post. You chuckled softly, feeling a connection to this small, curious companion. Its presence added a touch of life to the quiet garden, a reminder that even in stillness, life thrived in subtle, gentle ways. The mist from the ocean mingled with the garden's moisture, creating soft tendrils that drifted lazily along the pathways. Each step you took released faint scents, the earthy aroma of soil, the sweetness of wet flowers, and the subtle saltiness of the sea. The garden was alive with subtle sensations, each detail inviting attention, observation, and slow, deliberate enjoyment. You paused by the fountain again, letting your hand trail in the gently flowing water. The temperature was cool, refreshing, and calming. You felt the rhythm of the water mirror the rhythm of your breathing, a soft meditation of presence and tranquility. Around you, the garden seemed to lean in, as if encouraging you to stay, to linger, to let the peaceful night fully envelop you. From your seat on the bench, you watched as the lanterns flickered and the rain slowed further, almost to a delicate mist. Shadows lengthened and softened, and the interplay of light, water, and plant life created a sense of timelessness. You realized that the garden, perched between the town and the sea, held a perfect balance. It was a sanctuary, a stage, and a gentle reminder that beauty often existed in quiet, hidden corners. Eventually, the path led you to the garden's exit, a small archway framed with climbing ivy. You stepped through, taking one last glance over your shoulder at the glowing lanterns, the wet flowers, and the softly bubbling fountain. The seaside garden had offered more than scenery, it had offered reflection, gentle meditation, and a quiet, lingering joy that would accompany you as you continued through the sleepy town. With a final breath of salty, floral air, you continued down the misty path, carrying the garden's calm with you. Each step felt lighter, each sound softer, and each moment more attuned to the delicate rhythms of this rainy coastal evening. After leaving the serene seaside garden, your path meandered through a narrow lane that seemed almost forgotten by the rest of the town. The soft drizzle had slowed to a gentle mist, clinging to rooftops and cobblestones alike. It was here, tucked behind ivy, covered walls and a low, weathered archway, that you discovered the hidden cafe, a quiet little haven that promised warmth, comfort, and the faint aroma of freshly brewed coffee and baked treats. The entrance was unassuming, almost secretive. A small wooden sign, hand-painted and slightly chipped, swung gently in the breeze. It read simply, "The Misty Cup." You smiled at the name, feeling instantly invited. There was a magic in its modesty, a cafe that didn't need grandeur to capture attention. The faint lights spilling from the windows hinted at cozy nooks inside, warm firelight, and the gentle murmur of conversation. As you stepped inside, a small bell chimed softly, announcing your arrival. The warmth enveloped you immediately, contrasting delightfully with the damp chill outside. The air smelled of roasted coffee beans, cinnamon, and vanilla, mingling with the subtle sweetness of pastries cooling on a nearby rack. The cafe's interior was intimate, filled with mismatched chairs and wooden tables that gave it a homey, lived-in feel. Each piece of furniture seemed to have its own story, each corner a small scene waiting to be noticed. A barista with a kind smile looked up from behind the counter. "Evening? You've found our little nook. Care for a warm drink?" The question wasn't rushed, but gentle, inviting. You nodded, feeling the pull of comfort and curiosity. The barista moved with quiet grace. The soft clinking of cups and gentle hiss of the espresso machine, adding to the cafe's subtle music. You found a small table by the window overlooking the misty lane outside. Rain clung to the glass, refracting the warm lantern light from across the street into soft, golden streaks. Settling into the chair, you felt a cozy intimacy, the kind of small pleasure that comes from being tucked away in a quiet space while the world drifts softly past. A steaming cup of tea and a small plate of warm pastries arrived. The tea smelled faintly of chamomile and honey, soothing and gentle. The pastries were still warm, their sweetness delicate yet comforting. You took a slow sip, feeling the warmth spread through your chest and arms, a gentle contrast to the chill lingering on your coat. Each bite was a small indulgence, a simple joy made richer by the quiet and cozy ambience surrounding you. The cafe was decorated with small touches that made it feel alive. Shelves lined with books, postcards, and tiny trinkets offered glimpses into the lives of past visitors. Candles flickered in glass jars, casting playful shadows on the wooden walls. A small fireplace crackled quietly in the corner, the flames sending warmth and gentle light across the room. It was the kind of space that encouraged lingering, reflection, and quiet observation, a perfect pause on a rainy evening. Through the window, you noticed the narrow street beyond. Wet cobblestones reflected lantern light in soft, scattered pools. Occasionally, a cat padded across the street, or a lone figure hurried past under an umbrella. The mist softened the edges of the buildings, creating a dreamlike quality to the scene. You felt as if the cafe existed in its own little bubble, a secret world tucked within the sleepy coastal town. A soft chuckle escaped you as a small dog trotted past the window, its fur damp but its tail high and proud. It paused briefly, looking curiously inside before continuing on its adventure. Even in its fleeting appearance, it added a touch of life and gentle humor to the evening, a reminder that small surprises could make a quiet night even more delightful. The barista returned, placing a small notebook on your table. "A little something from our visitors," they said. Inside were handwritten notes, doodles, and short reflections left by previous guests. You leafed through them, smiling at the variety of thoughts, some poetic, some humorous, all sincere. It was a quiet, human connection bridging the distance of time and space. Even strangers had left warmth and presence here, adding to the cafe's charm. You sipped your tea again, letting the warmth mingle with the gentle hum of the cafe. The soft patter of rain on the window and the faint clinking of cups created a comforting rhythm. Your thoughts slowed, as if the cafe had absorbed the tension of your day and replaced it with calm, reflection, and gentle delight. A couple in a corner spoke in whispers, their conversation punctuated by soft laughter. A lone reader flipped the pages of a thick, well-loved book. Each little scene felt like a vignette in a larger story, the cafe itself a stage for quiet moments and subtle human connection. You marveled at the simplicity of it, realizing that joy often existed in small, unassuming details. Time seemed to stretch, unhurried and soft. The rain outside fell gently, the mist softened the town's edges, and the cafe held you in its warm, protective embrace. You let yourself linger, enjoying the gentle intimacy of the space, the warmth of your cup, and the soft light flickering across the walls. The hidden cafe was more than a stop, it was a pause, a gentle exhale in the rhythm of the evening, a small sanctuary in the midst of a sleepy town. Eventually, it was time to continue your walk. You left the warmth and quiet behind, stepping back into the misty lane. The drizzle kissed your cheeks again, but the cafe's comfort lingered like a soft glow in your chest. You carried its warmth with you, a reminder that quiet corners held the greatest magic. As you walked away, the faint chime of the cafe bell echoed softly behind you, a gentle farewell, promising that the hidden cafe would always be there for those seeking calm, warmth, and the small wonders of a rainy, sleepy coastal evening. After leaving the hidden cafe, you stepped once again into the gentle drizzle of the sleepy coastal town. The mist clung lightly to rooftops and cobblestones, and the lanterns along the streets cast soft golden pools of light on the wet stones. The town was quiet now, as if holding its breath, and every sound, The patter of rain, the occasional distant wave, the creak of a sign swaying, felt amplified in the calm evening. You strolled slowly, savoring the serenity. Your footsteps echoed gently on the slick cobblestones, creating a quiet rhythm that matched the soft heartbeat of the town. Each street corner, each winding alley seemed familiar now, yet still full of subtle surprises. A half-hidden door, a flicker of light, the faint scent of bread or pine from nearby windows. The familiarity of it all was comforting, like returning to a place you had always known, even if you had never been there before. The drizzle had almost stopped, leaving behind a faint mist that softened every edge. Lamplight reflected in puddles, creating tiny pools of gold that seemed to float on the stones. You noticed the texture of the cobblestones under your shoes, wet and glistening, and smiled at the way the town transformed under the evening rain. Even simple details, the curve of a rooftop, the moss on a wall, the gentle sway of a hanging sign, felt magical in the quiet night. Passing by the narrow alleys you had explored earlier, memories of your earlier wanderings returned. The hidden bookstore, the cozy inn, the seaside garden, the wooden bridge, they all seemed to whisper in the night, small echoes of a journey through calm and wonder. You felt connected not just to the town, but to yourself, moving slowly, breathing slowly, and letting the gentle night guide you. A soft breeze carried the faint scent of the ocean mixed with earth and rain. You inhaled deeply, letting the smell fill your lungs, feeling it carry away any lingering tension. Occasionally, a distant gull called out, its voice muted by the mist and distance. You smiled quietly, imagining the bird gliding effortlessly over the waves, perfectly at home in this soft, misty world. The street lamps cast long shadows along the walls, flickering as the breeze nudged the lamps gently. You watched the light play over the wet surfaces, noticing reflections, tiny ripples in puddles, and the soft shimmer on the cobblestones. Each step felt meditative, each sight a small gift of calm observation. You realized that walking slowly through a quiet town after rain could be as comforting as any warm drink or cozy room. Along the way, a small cat emerged from an alley, brushing against a lamppost and pausing to watch you. Its green eyes reflected the warm light, curious but calm. You chuckled softly at its small, deliberate movements, imagining it as a secret guardian of the quiet streets, silently witnessing the town's gentle rhythms and guiding travelers like you. It padded off into the mist without a sound, leaving a faint trace of mystery and charm behind. You passed the inn once more, its warm windows glowing softly in the night. Inside, you could imagine the gentle hum of conversation, the crackle of the fire, and the soft clink of cups. A comforting thought passed through your mind. Places like this exist in the world, small sanctuaries where warmth and kindness linger, waiting for anyone willing to pause and notice. The pier, visible from the end of a street, glimmered faintly in the distance. You walked toward it, feeling the gentle tug of the water and the rhythmic lull of the waves. The sea seemed quieter now, calmer, as if it too was preparing for the soft embrace of night. The gentle lapping of water against pilings blended with the distant calls of seabirds, creating a layered lullaby that accompanied your stroll. Passing familiar sights, you noticed tiny details you hadn't before. A lantern flickering just a bit longer than others, the curve of a gutter, a small puddle perfectly reflecting the stars beginning to appear in the misty sky. Each detail felt like a secret the town was sharing with those willing to pay attention. You felt grateful for the simplicity of the moment, the gentle wonder in quiet observation. Occasionally, a faint rustle of leaves or the soft creak of a wooden shutter reminded you that the town was alive, even in its near sleeping state. You smiled at the gentle humor of it all, the little noises, the quiet movements, the small signs that life continues even in the softest hours. The rhythm of the evening felt playful and kind, a quiet companion to your steps along the wet streets. As you approached the harbour again, the gentle glow of the lighthouse in the distance reminded you of the journey you had taken through the town. Each corner, each alley, each hidden nook contributed to the rhythm of the evening, a slow, meditative passage from curiosity to calm, from observation to reflection. The lighthouse's steady beam cut softly through the mist, a guiding light in the quiet night, promising safety and serenity. You paused briefly on a small footbridge over a narrow stream, watching the water ripple gently beneath you. The reflection of the lanterns danced on the moving surface, creating small, shifting pools of light. A quiet bird called somewhere nearby, and the gentle splash of water against stone added to the meditative melody of the night. You felt the town's heartbeat in these small moments, gentle and consistent, carrying you toward the end of your walk. Eventually, the familiar cobblestone streets guided you back toward the edge of the town, where the first chapter of your evening had begun. The soft drizzle had faded entirely, leaving behind only the lingering mist, the shimmering reflections, and the calm memory of a rainy evening spent exploring. Your steps felt lighter now, your chest filled with the gentle serenity of the town, and your mind quieted by the rhythm of your slow walk. The evening walk back had been more than a return. It had been a reflection, a meditation, and a gentle closure. The town had shared its stories, its hidden corners, its warmth, and its magic. You carried these with you like tiny lanterns in your chest, guiding you gently toward rest, calm, and the soft embrace of night. After your gentle evening walk back through the quiet streets, your path led you toward the lighthouse perched on the cliff at the edge of the town. The structure, tall and steadfast, stood like a quiet guardian over the sleepy coastal village. Even from a distance, its beacon rotated slowly, sending soft beams of light across the misty harbour and the gentle waves beyond. Tonight, the lighthouse felt especially comforting, a familiar rhythm in an evening full of reflection and calm. The path up the hill was slick with rain, but the soft glow of the lanterns lining the way guided your steps. Each stone underfoot reflected the warm light, creating tiny golden mirrors that danced as you moved. The mist curling around the cliffside softened the edges of the landscape, making the journey feel dreamlike. You walked slowly, letting the rhythm of your steps match the steady rotation of the lighthouse beacon above. As you approached, the lighthouse revealed more of its charm. Its whitewashed walls, streaked with rain, glowed softly under the night sky, Windows along the spiral staircase emitted a faint, warm light, suggesting a quiet life within. Perhaps a keeper was tending the light, or maybe it was fully automated now. But either way, the presence of the beacon offered a sense of stability and reassurance. There was humor in imagining a sleepy lighthouse keeper, wrapped in a thick sweater, sipping tea as the light slowly turned, keeping watch over both sea and town. Reaching the base of the lighthouse, you noticed the gentle roar of waves crashing against the cliffs below. The sound was distant yet grounding, a constant rhythm that complemented the soft beacon above. You leaned on the low wall near the edge, feeling the sea breeze lightly tussle your hair. The combination of salt, mist, and rain created a faintly bracing scent, refreshing and calming at the same time. Looking up, the lighthouse's rotating beam seemed almost hypnotic. Each rotation painted the night with a gentle glow, illuminating patches of mist and sea spray in fleeting moments of brilliance. You imagined the light as a slow, steady heartbeat for the town, marking time and offering guidance to anyone wandering near or far. It was a reminder that even in darkness and rain, there were constants, gentle, reliable, and comforting. The cliffside surrounding the lighthouse was dotted with hardy coastal plants. Their leaves glistened with raindrops, each droplet catching the rotating light in tiny sparkles. You bent slightly to examine them, noticing the textures. The rough edges of coastal grasses, the smooth surfaces of rain-soaked leaves, and tiny blooms clinging to the rocks. Even in such a rugged, exposed place, life persisted, beautiful and understated. A wooden bench, worn and polished by years of weather, sat a few steps from the lighthouse entrance. You moved toward it, settling down to take in the full view. From this vantage point, the town glimmered softly behind you, the harbour reflected in the misty night, and the ocean stretched endlessly ahead. The lighthouse's beam cut across the horizon in steady arcs, and you felt a quiet alignment with its rhythm, a soft meditation in motion. Occasionally, the wind carried a distant gull's call or the faint splash of a wave against the rocks. The sounds blended with the subtle hum of the rotating light, creating a gentle, natural symphony. You closed your eyes for a moment, letting the elements, the salt air, the mist, the soft beacon, and the distant town meld into a single, calming experience. It was a sensory embrace, a moment of stillness where the world felt precisely as it should. A small cat, familiar from your earlier wanderings perhaps, appeared at the edge of the cliff, pausing to observe the waves. It sat quietly, tail curled around its paws, and occasionally flicked an ear at the wind. You chuckled softly, imagining the cat as a tiny assistant to the lighthouse keeper, a silent companion in the night. Even its small presence added a touch of warmth and gentle humor to the grand, tranquil scene. The lighthouse itself seemed to have a personality. Its slow, rhythmic rotation suggested patience, constancy, and a quiet guardianship. You imagined the light stretching far out to sea, touching the masts of distant ships, guiding them safely past hidden rocks. In the gentle rain, with the town's lights below and the endless ocean beyond, the lighthouse became more than a structure, it became a symbol of calm, steadiness, and watchful care. From your seat on the bench, You noticed the interplay of shadow and light. The mist caught the beam in soft swaths, creating moving patterns across the cliffside. Rain droplets sparkled faintly, reflecting the warm lanterns of the town below. Every rotation of the beacon offered a new perspective, a subtle shift in how the world was illuminated. It was mesmerizing, meditative, and deeply soothing. You sipped a warm cup of tea you had brought along, feeling the heat spread through your body as the lighthouse turned above you. Each sip was a gentle anchor, grounding you in the present, while the slow rotation of the beacon offered a rhythm to match your calm breathing. The town, the sea, and the lighthouse worked together in harmony, a quiet orchestration of serenity. Time seemed to stretch in the lighthouse's presence. Minutes and hours blurred into the gentle cadence of light and shadow, rain and mist, waves and wind. You felt the town's heartbeat align with your own, a soft, steady pulse of calm and observation. There was humor in noticing how small and human you felt beside this steadfast sentinel, yet also comfort in being part of the quiet, enduring rhythm of the coastal night. Eventually, it was time to leave the lighthouse and follow the last stretch of your walk. You rose from the bench, taking a final look at the steady beacon. Its light continued to sweep across the sea, a quiet, reassuring presence in the misty darkness, carrying the calm rhythm and warmth of the lighthouse in your chest. You began to descend back toward the town, ready to close the evening with gentle reflection and the soft embrace of sleep. After your serene visit to the lighthouse, the gentle streets of the sleepy coastal town guided you back toward the cozy inn. The drizzle had mostly faded, leaving behind a faint mist that clung softly to the cobblestones. Lanterns glimmered in the quiet night, reflecting in tiny puddles and casting a warm, welcoming glow. Each step felt lighter now, carried by the calm and wonder you had gathered from the evening's exploration. The inn's familiar outline emerged ahead, its windows glowing warmly in the mist. Smoke curled faintly from the chimney, and the soft sound of a fire crackling inside drifted through the air. The wooden sign swayed gently, creaking a tiny greeting, "Welcome back." You smiled, feeling as if the town itself had noticed your return, offering one final embrace before the night concluded. Stepping inside, the warmth hit you immediately, a contrast to the cool mist outside. The inn was quiet, intimate, and perfectly cozy. Soft lamplight reflected off the polished wooden floors, and the faint scent of herbs and baked bread lingered in the air. The innkeeper, a kind soul with a gentle smile, nodded in recognition as you entered. "Back from your walk?" they asked softly. You nodded, grateful for the quiet familiarity and the comforting presence. You made your way up the narrow staircase to your room. Each step creaked softly, as if echoing the gentle heartbeat of the town itself. The room was modest yet inviting, with a small window overlooking the harbour, curtains drawn slightly to let in the silver mist of night. A plush blanket lay folded neatly on the bed, and a small wooden table held a steaming cup of herbal tea, a thoughtful touch, inviting you to pause and savour the final moments of wakefulness. Sitting on the edge of the bed, you took a slow sip of tea, letting the warmth seep through your body. The rhythmic drip of remaining raindrops from the eaves outside blended with the distant hum of the ocean. Each sound was gentle, steady and calming, a natural lullaby crafted by the town itself. You closed your eyes briefly, letting the evening's experiences settle into your mind and heart, carrying the subtle magic of the rainy coastal streets with you. From the window, you could see the lighthouse beacon sweeping steadily over the misty harbour. Its light cut through the darkness in slow, measured arcs, a quiet companion to your journey toward rest. You imagined the lighthouse keeping watch over the town as you slept, a steady guardian in the night, reminding you of constancy, calm, and gentle guidance. The soft glow of a bedside lamp filled the room with warmth, illuminating familiar details. The cozy armchair in the corner, the stack of old books on the small table, and a little trinket left by the innkeeper, a small seashell from the nearby shore. These simple, thoughtful touches reminded you that comfort often resides in small gestures, quiet moments, and spaces carefully tended with care and attention. You stretched under the blanket, feeling its softness against your skin. The night outside was alive with gentle whispers, the distant call of a night bird, the occasional murmur of a wave against the cliffs, and the subtle sigh of the wind through the misty streets. Each sound felt protective rather than intrusive, a subtle orchestration designed to lull the mind and body toward rest. Closing your eyes, memories of the evening floated gently in your mind. You recalled wandering along narrow cobblestone streets, discovering hidden cafés, pausing in quiet gardens, and observing the lighthouse from its cliffside perch. Each moment had been unhurried, intimate, and soothing. The town's magic was not loud or dramatic. It lived in small details: a puddle reflecting lantern light, a cat's curious visit, the aroma of fresh pastries, and the gentle rhythm of the sea. You imagined the town continuing its quiet life while you slept. The inn's hearth would crackle softly, the lighthouse would sweep its guiding beam, and the cobblestone streets would rest under the mist. Even in your absence, the town remained alive in subtle ways, a comforting thought as you drifted closer to slumber. As your breathing slowed, the tea's warmth fading gently, you allowed yourself to sink fully into the embrace of the bed. The blanket cocooned you, the room's quiet warmth enveloped you, and the subtle symphony of distant waves reigned. And the lighthouse guided your mind towards stillness. The evening had been a journey not just through the town, but through calm, observation, and gentle wonder, a perfect preparation for rest. A faint smile tugged at your lips as you thought of all the small adventures of the night, crossing narrow bridges, exploring hidden alleys, watching lanterns shimmer in puddles, sipping tea in a tucked-away cafe, and finally resting in the cozy inn. The town's magic was not fleeting, it was woven into every detail, ready to carry you gently into dreams. Finally, you let the last of your thoughts drift away. The room's warmth, the soft blanket, the gentle sounds of the night, and the distant lighthouse beacon all worked together in harmony. Your mind slowed, your body relaxed, and a sense of deep, contented calm settled in. The sleepy coastal town had guided you through an evening of quiet magic, reflection, and gentle observation, and now it carried you into the soft, restorative embrace of sleep. With a final sigh of satisfaction and comfort, your eyes closed completely. The world outside remained softly alive. The rain had stopped, the mist hung lightly, and the lighthouse continued its patient vigil. You slept, wrapped in the gentle rhythm of the town, cradled by the cozy inn, and carried along by the calm heartbeat of a rainy coastal evening.